Pope Francis recently went on the show 60 Minutes for a sit-down interview. He was pressed on the question of whether we can expect to ever see female deacons ordained within the church. He responded, "No. If it is deacons with holy orders, no. But women have always had, I would say, the function of deaconesses without being deacons. Women are of great service as women, not as ministers in this regard, within the holy orders." This response seems pretty matter-of-fact in terms of where the Pope stands on this issue, but some have claimed that the Pope's response is in direct contradiction to what some Catholic cardinals and others in Francis's orbit have stated. Let's take a look at some of the contradicting evidence and see where things actually stand with female clergy in the Church. In a recent interview, Cardinal Jean-Claude Hollerich, Archbishop of Luxembourg, suggested that the Church's position on female priests is not set in stone and should be discussed further. He stated that the prohibition against ordaining women was not an infallible doctrinal decision and could be changed over time with arguments. He went on further. "The way I see it, most bishops are in favor of a greater role for women in the Church. I am in favor of women feeling fully equal in the Church. And we will also work toward this. I don't know if that necessarily has to include ordination to the priesthood. You can't tie everything to the priesthood alone. That would be clericalization." When asked whether he thought Pope Francis would introduce female priests, Hollerich replied, "It's very difficult to say. The Pope is sometimes good for surprises." It's well known that Cardinal Hollerich has a more liberal philosophy, and that this could be his own personal wish for the Church. However, these statements that he's attributed to Pope Francis seem to be in direct contradiction to his answer in the 60 Minutes interview regarding female clergy. Could it be that Hollerich is misrepresenting previous statements made by the Pope? Or could it be that the Pope is telling the public one thing and his inner circle something else? Another key piece of evidence is in regard to a Spanish nun, Linda Pacher, who has participated in recent meetings of Pope Francis's top advisory body. She said that while women's priestly ordination is currently off the table, the pontiff is supportive of the female diaconate. For the past 2 sessions of the Pope's Council of Cardinals, female theologians have been invited to offer input on the role of women in the Church, which is among the primary issues the Council is discussing. This is also a key discussion point of the ongoing Synod of Bishops on Synodality, set to conclude this October. After the meetings, she stated, the diaconate was also discussed. We know that the Pope is very much in favor of the female diaconate, but he is still trying to understand how to put it into practice. Pope Francis, Pacher said, is changing the Church's way of thinking and living the difference between ordained ministry and the baptismal priesthood, extending to all the baptized some rights that until recently belonged to bishops, priests, or religious. Here lies another situation in which a person of influence claims to have heard Pope Francis support the idea of female deacons. Is it possible that she's fabricating this response in order to garner media attention for the issue? Or that she may have misunderstood the Pope's intentions? Here remains another instance in which it seems Pope Francis may not be so firm on his position of a female diaconate. It would have been helpful in the 60 Minutes interview if Pope Francis had been asked to directly respond to the comments made by Linda Pacher. Throughout Pope Francis's pontificate, he has launched 2 study commissions to look into whether women can be ordained as deacons. The first commission was established in August 2016 to review the theology and history of the ministry of women deacons in the Roman Catholic Church. The commission report was not published, but Pope Francis promised to reopen this commission. Rather than reopen the 2016 commission, the Pope decided to establish a new commission on April 8, 2020. In a public address, Pope Francis indicated that he welcomed the request to reconvene the commission and perhaps expand it with new members in order to continue to study the permanent diaconate that existed in the early Church. It seems that Pope Francis is looking to investigate the ancient female diaconate. There is evidence to suggest that women may have served as deacons in the early Catholic Church. What remains unclear is if they had been ordained and received holy orders. What seems interesting is that Pope Francis is willing to invest time and resources to look further into this issue. It makes it appear as if he's open to gathering evidence to potentially make a case for a female diaconate. Or it may also be possible that he's receiving pressure to allow for female clergy, and he wants to try and appease those forces. Whatever the case, it does seem unusual that the Pope would invest these resources in a matter that he seemed so decided upon in his 60 Minutes interview. This is just one more piece of the puzzle that shows how Pope Francis's actions, as well as secondhand testimony, have served as direct contradiction to his public statements. This isn't the first time that there has been confusion over Pope Francis's public positions. When he released Fiducia Supplicans, it was completely unclear as to whether or not the Pope was endorsing the blessing of same-sex couples, or whether he was just allowing for individual blessings. It seems that the main issue may be in the Pope's communications department. The Church would benefit greatly if the Holy See were willing to tackle this confusion and to make the positions of the Pope crystal clear.